in the heart of the Dakhla Desert, a place so remote even satellite maps blur into ambiguity. A black structure jutted from the sands like a blade of night piercing the earth. It stood taller than any dune, smooth as obsidian, with angles too precise to be eroded by time or weather. The local Bedouins refused to speak of it. Their elders told stories, half warnings, half riddles, of a pillar that hummed beneath the stars and was never to be approached when the moon disappeared. The first Western documentation came from a 1937 British cartographic expedition, though the official record was redacted shortly after submission. One map, now kept in a private archive in Prague, marked the area only with a smudged black triangle and the initials TK. No one ever explained what TK stood for, but a fringe scholar claimed it matched the insignia found on an unearthed Babylonian tablet, a symbol meaning sky tomb. By 2023, renewed satellite sweeps picked up faint electromagnetic pulses from the region, pulses with rhythmic anomalies not found in any known geological or artificial source. A covert team funded by an unnamed European foundation entered the desert under the guise of climate research. Their camp lasted only 6 days. On the 7th, the only communication received was a burst of audio static followed by a single word, Azrazan. Geologists could not account for the monument's density. Its base resisted ground-penetrating radar as if it were absorbing the signal. Attempts to chisel samples failed, the tools dulled instantly, and a lab technician reported a sharp ringing in his ears afterward, though no one else heard anything. The next day he vanished without a trace. Only his notebook remained, its final entry scribbled in trembling hand. It looked back. A theory emerged from Dr. Elias Revington, an expert in archaeoacoustics. He proposed that the pulses were a form of sonic language, possibly not for us, but for something above. Revington's study of the pulse frequencies showed a harmonic resonance at 432 Hz, a tone many ancient cultures believed was the key to the cosmos. When played through a modified speaker array near the obelisk, the ground vibrated subtly, and the sky above grew unnaturally still. On the third night of this test, the team reported a sudden drop in temperature and the appearance of concentric rings of ash circling the obelisk. Each ring held patterns etched not by wind or animal, but with mathematical precision. Fibonacci spirals, prime numbers, celestial alignments dating back over 12,000 years, and at the center, a new marking had appeared on the monument, a sigil resembling an inverted eye weeping flame. Just as momentum built, the research group was disbanded. The foundation funding them vanished overnight, its online presence scrubbed, bank accounts drained. Whistleblowers attempted to release findings through underground forums, but all posts were deleted within minutes. A cryptic message began circulating among the dark Esoterica communities. The sky is watching what we dig. One of the dismissed researchers, Dr. Kieran Holt, went rogue. He claimed to have retrieved a fragment, microscopic, nearly weightless, and had it embedded in a protective matrix for transport. In a recorded interview, Holt appeared gaunt, sleep-deprived but driven. "It's not stone," he whispered. "It's language in solid form. Not written on the obelisk. The obelisk is the word." But Holt never made it to his next meeting. His car was found idling beside a rural road in Crete, headlights on, doors locked from the inside. On the seat, a charred folder. No remains. No sign of struggle. Only a smear of black dust and a circle of burned grass directly beneath where the passenger side door had been. Strangely, a shepherd from the area reported strange activity in the sky that night. Silent, amber-colored orbs that hovered, aligned, then blinked out one by one. He remembered something else, a soundless vibration in his chest that lingered for hours after. His sheep had scattered and were never seen again. That region has since been quarantined under the guise of agricultural contamination. A team of Sumerian linguists who reviewed Holt's earlier data made a chilling connection. The pulse frequencies, when translated into cuneiform cadence, matched passages from the Enuma Elish, not the known version, but an obscure variant found on a scorched tablet during the Iraq War. The translation read, "From the pillar that was not born of this world, the sky shall reclaim its debt." And then, as if timed by something not of this earth, the obelisk pulsed again. This time, 3 separate observatories, one in Tibet, one in Namibia, and one on a weather balloon over the South Pacific, picked up the signal, each in perfect synchronization, each broadcasting a harmonic echo, followed by total equipment failure. The sky over Dakhla darkened unnaturally the following day. Locals described it not as an eclipse but a shroud that moved like breathing smoke. No birds flew overhead, no insects stirred, and beneath the black monolith the ground cracked in a perfect circle, revealing not stone or soil, but a mirror-smooth surface that reflected nothing. It was not glass, it was absence. In the final recovered drone footage, smuggled out by an unnamed technician before the blackout, the obelisk was seen changing. Its surface became fluid, refracting the sky in impossible geometries. A low hum permeated the air, too low for human ears but visible in the motion of particles. Time appeared to stutter. The clouds above froze. The desert wind halted mid-blow. And then something emerged, not from the base, but from the air around it. A distortion, like a figure draped in refracted light, standing just to the left of the monument's shadow. It did not move, it did not vanish. But it was watching, and for a moment the drone's camera focused, catching the outline of what could not be named. In the distance, lightning forked across a clear sky. The footage ended there, static, silence, and then a new signal. Lower than before, slower, repeating every 13 minutes. No one has deciphered what it says. Weeks passed in shadow. No official channels acknowledged the anomaly. No media outlet mentioned the pulses, the sky darkening, the signal. But in the hidden corridors of forbidden archaeology and occult research, something had shifted. Private forums flickered to life. Encrypted transmissions between long, inactive accounts whispered of the tremor of the 13th minute. A phrase traced to a banned Rosicrucian manuscript, written in mirror script and buried beneath a monastery that no longer appears on maps. The obelisk, now referred to by those in the know simply as the Sentinel, began emitting a new pattern of vibrations, not just into the earth but upward, into the ionosphere. A global array of amateur ham radio operators began reporting strange interference at precise intervals. Those who tuned in without caution described visions behind their eyelids, spirals of light descending into caverns, an endless staircase of stone beneath a black sky, and whispers in a language they instantly understood but could not remember. Dr. Rahim Solari, a linguist and cryptographer known for decoding suppressed texts from Göbekli Tepe, isolated a pattern within the transmissions. Using an ancient Sogdian cipher and overlaying it with the pre-flood antediluvian numerical grid found in Ugaritic scrolls, he uncovered a message. One line, one warning. The sky-sealed gate was broken once. We are the echo of its reopening. Shortly after publishing a redacted version of his findings to a private server, Solari vanished. His home was found in immaculate condition save for the study. There, every clock had stopped at 3:13 IEM, and carved into the inside of the window glass on the interior surface was the same sigil that appeared on the obelisk, the inverted eye-weeping flame. A recovered journal from an expedition scout smuggled out by an anonymous courier described a vast chamber discovered beneath the obelisk after the ground cracked. The descent was vertical, metallic, but not constructed. The walls were not carved. They grew in fractal spirals. Downward they traveled for what felt like hours before emerging into a chamber so large it consumed their flashlight beams in darkness. No echoes. No sounds. Only pressure. and the hum. In the center of the chamber stood a smaller black pillar, similar in form to the obelisk, but covered in geometric etchings that moved when not observed directly. One scout, a man named Luis Cardenas, touched the pillar. His hand passed through it. He screamed once, collapsed, and began convulsing. When he came to, he spoke a single sentence in Akkadian, despite never learning the language. "We are beneath the first sky. This is the garden they buried." The next night, the team heard something moving above. Not footsteps, dragging, like stone scraping bone. The hum increased in pitch, now perceptible as a low moan reverberating through marrow. Several members suffered nosebleeds. One wrote a final message in his notebook before vanishing from his cot during the second watch. "The obelisk is not a marker, it's a lock." Back on the surface, a satellite feed recorded a perfect circular burn radius expanding outward from the obelisk every 13 days. The vegetation, where it managed to grow in the arid zone, withered instantly. But more disturbingly, animals that entered the perimeter never left. Bones dissolved, tracks ended mid-stride. Time-lapse footage revealed something unnerving. The shadows within the radius moved in opposition to the sun. Ancient accounts began to re-emerge from neglected vaults. A fragment from the lost library of Heliopolis, once thought destroyed in the fire, surfaced. It spoke of a monument born before the deluge, set to face the watchers of the outer ring. In margin notes, a priest had scribbled, "If it wakes, the veil must be reforged in blood and sound." Meanwhile, astronomers detected a consistent blink from a point in the Oort cloud. Not a natural body, not a comet. The light pulsed in perfect alignment with the obelisk's rhythm. It was not a signal, it was a reply. And with each pulse, the ionosphere grew thinner above the Dakhla site, not in distance, but in resistance. Frequencies from deep space began to slip through whispers in magnetic tongues. Those few who remained near the site described dreams not their own, memories of standing before vast black pyramids beneath violet skies, moons cracked like eggshells above, children weeping soundlessly in robes, a tower rising not built but summoned, through sacrifice and song, and always, always the hum. Then, without warning, the obelisk stopped pulsing. No signal. Silence. For 43 hours the desert stood still. And then, one final tremor. The sand split in a perfect circle around the obelisk, revealing a spiral staircase of luminescent stone descending into the black. No team has yet returned from that descent. But the last transmission, received at precisely 1313 UTC, came through a rusted military relay tower inactive since 1991. A voice. Not human, not artificial, calm, measured, and in perfect Sumerian. The eye is open, the gate has remembered its purpose, return is no longer optional. A private jet, unscheduled and without transponder, was seen leaving a NATO airfield within hours. Its destination, unknown, its passenger manifest, classified. But observers noted one thing: a black crate sealed with copper bands, carried by 6 men in lead suits. And somewhere deep beneath the sands, beneath the obelisk, beneath time, something stirred in the dark. Something that had never forgotten what the sky had once tried to hide. The night the plane vanished beyond radar, the world shifted its axis. Intelligence nodes catalogued the jet's flight path, a loop into the sea, then back to the desert. No traces on satellite imagery. But bits of static-laden radio chatter were intercepted, callers speaking in tongues that strained the fabric of phonetics, vowels stretched into reverberations, consonants resonating like ringing metal. Analysts called it the Akkadian cantillation. It matched none of their lexicons, yet it whispered of altars, offerings, and return. In Cairo, a clandestine archaeological collective known as the Archivum decoded fragments from the copper-banded crate. Inside was a fragment of the obelisk itself, an artifact smelling of ozone and dust. It glowed faintly under ultraviolet light, etched with what seemed like a map, geometric lines converging in three-dimensional space. One page of notes, possibly scribbled by a soldier, read, "We found the shape of sky within it." Meanwhile, satellite recon found a second obelisk, smaller but identical in structure, emerging in Antarctica's Queen Maud Land, pushed through ice like a thorn through skin. Remote cameras captured midnight light pouring from its base. The pulsing began anew, but this time the frequency rose, from 432 Hz to 528 Hz. The frequency of transformation, said some occultists. The media called it an unexplained anomaly. Those who investigated never returned. In the brain labs of Geneva, EEG data from volunteers who listened to recordings of the obelisk pulsing revealed a bizarre phenomenon. Brainwaves synchronized, then diverged. Subjects described visions of cyclopean arches under electric auroras, of black-winged quadrupeds that seemed to guard hidden doorways. One whispered, "It knows me." A researcher quietly noted in the log, "Subject stopped breathing for 11 seconds." Closer to the original site, a private contractor outfitted with geothermal sensors recorded a subterranean heat signature. At a depth of 4.2 K, the reading spiked, a magma-like glow contained beneath what appeared to be an artificially cooled ceiling. The object beneath the obelisk was no cave. It was a chamber built to let the earth breathe, but that breath now shook the seismometers. In remote corners of the dark web, an anonymous user shared a sequence of coordinates, leading to another black pillar, this time in the dense rainforests of the Amazon. Explorers who followed found it submerged halfway in a river, its tip reaching skyward. Fish shoals circled it in shimmering sink, and the water around it remained clear, even in murky flow. They recorded a pulsing undertow, pulling debris inward. Back at Dakhla, the spiral stairwell under the Sentinel was entered by a joint team of Egyptian antiquities officials and international researchers. They descended 2 levels before something changed. Time slowed. Their watches ticked, then glitched, some running backward, others stopped altogether. Their LED lights began to falter, then went out, one by one, until only bioluminescent markings along the stair edges guided them. At the bottom, a vast antechamber opened, floor, walls, and ceiling covered in an alien fresco. It depicted the creation of the obelisk, beings of luminous form kneeling before a portal of black stone. Above them, a constellation matching the precessional alignment, 25,920 years before present, around 23,000 BCE. But the stunners dropped on legends. The beings held no tools, no fire. They shaped the obelisk with their minds. One of the team, Dr. Farida El-Mateen, recorded audio, a low chant in layered tones beneath human hearing, interlaced with what could only be described as a heartbeat of the world. Everyone knew they should retreat, but none moved. Some spoke quietly in unknown languages. Then the lights shivered back on, dipping into golden hues that seemed biological, not electric. They advanced to the central dais, a hexagonal platform of polished stone, no visible mechanisms. But as one stepped forward, the platform pulsed underfoot, and the fresco shifted. The painted beings standing up, their gazes blinking to life, following the explorers. The chamber's air grew humid, the temperature climbed, sweat coated them. Instruments overrode, magnetometers pegged, thermal cameras glitched, and the stairwell above sealed shut with an audible hum. A sudden quake rattled the chamber. Dust fell from unseen above. The team grabbed their equipment to film the ceiling and noticed black cracks fracturing across the stone, revealing something like living color beneath. Not blood, not earth, but light. A spectrum that had no name. It pulsed outward slowly, consuming the brown stone. One member screamed as a whisper echoed, not from his headset but inside his skull, "We have come home." Dr. El-Mateen hit record. The hum dropped out. The fissures glowed. And then, from deep within the chamber, an answering pulse. 4 quick beats. Then silence. Back on the surface sensors recorded tremors across Africa, Europe, Asia. Three-quarter devices captured ionospheric swelling. The Obelisk had activated. The Antarctic and Amazonic ones responded instantly. Satellite arrays recorded new voids forming around each site, like black holes not of mass but of resistance, warping the flow of energy. A live feed from drones hovering over the Antarctic pillar showed fractal frost spirals crawling up the structure, dissipating into nothing, but the drones didn't return audio. Only a single datum remained, a temperature drop to 128 DEGC in a 10-meter radius. Equipment froze, cameras shut down, and then, panic scrawl in metadata. It's singing. Meanwhile, missing person reports flooded in. Explorers, researchers, porters vanished near each site. In each case, their last known GPS ping formed a perfect circle around the pillar, all leading inward. No bodies, no cries, no digital ghost transmissions. Only last words typed into phones. It answers. Back in Cairo, the Archivum cross-referenced Holt's fragment map with the Amazon pillar and discovered the 3 align on a line through the Earth's core, forming vertices of a tetrahedron, with the 3rd at the South Pole. Connect the dots and they form an arrow pointing to something deep beneath the planet's crust. Satellite telescopes aimed at the Oort cloud light source showed more blinking, but now there was variation. Modulation in the pulses, as if responding to Earth's chamber activity. A conversation across 20 billion kilometers. One side in ion beats, the other in cosmic blink. At the Dakhla site, engineers fired an EMP pulse through the Sentinel, hoping to silence it. The ground trembled, but the Obelisk remained smooth. Instead, the nearby spiral stairway lit up from below. An invitation, a response. They do not accept erasure. Inside the chamber, the fissures spread. The fresco light bled into the stairwell. Cameras feeding live to teams above froze, and just as instruments failed, one vision prevailed. The painted beings, now luminous, stepped forward. Their forms blurred, ran like water, coalesced into a jubilant chorus of presence. The transmission cut. Silence for 8 minutes. Then, a whisper, low and crystalline. "Will you remember me?" No one answered. Silence settled over the desert like a living thing. The obelisk's glow vanished, and the sky returned to its empty blue. But beneath the sand, echoes of the chamber's transformation pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat just beyond human perception. The globe above felt still, but everywhere below the surface something had awakened. In Kabul, intercepted encrypted telemetry revealed that the fragmented piece taken from the Cairo crate had been inserted into a device no larger than a loaf of bread by agents of an unknown intelligence. The device hummed oddly, then blinked once, amber light. A moment later, Kabul's seismographs recorded a subterranean pulse joining the chorus. At the Dakhla descent shaft, an unmanned rover was dispatched. Its sensors recorded the chamber as empty, silent, still. But when the rover attempted to ascend, it did not reach the surface. Instead, its control feed sputtered out mid-climb and resumed 3 hours later from 3 kilometers below, facing downward. The final footage showed luminescent carvings crawling farther up the stairwell in the pitch deck labyrinth, growing toward the rover's light. Meanwhile, a cargo vessel crossing the South Pacific encountered a freak electromagnetic storm. The crew described it as the sky screaming, instruments fried. When radio silence broke hours later, only 3 words were transmitted. They follow pulses. A satellite analysis revealed concentric ripples propagating outward from the Antarctic obelisk, passing through marine and crustal strata, like echoes traveling through the spine of the world. And Vatican archives, a newly discovered manuscript, long sequestered in a hidden crypt, spoke of a black pillar of Ahriman that stands as a sentinel against the return of the Watchers. It warned that clones of the Sentinel would rise across the globe in times of crisis to synchronize the world with a pulse not born of earth. Yet the very text also contained a ritual incantation, an answer, a method to silence the pillars, copied in Latin and Aramaic, bound by 3 seals. On the ground, Bedouin elders arrived near Dakhla with a traveling retinue of Sufi mystics and desert shamans. They claimed their ancestors had known of the text of Cataclysm, passed in whispered verse across caravan routes. They called it the Lament of the First Gate and said it carried both salvation and curse. That night, they began to chant beneath the obelisk's shadow, their voices laden in desert resonance. The ground responded, vibrations like distant thunder. But at midnight their eldest collapsed, eyes rolled back, while the pillar emitted a sharp flash that scorched the sand. Inside Moscow's secret occult laboratories, researchers decrypted fragments of the increased frequencies. Their analysis found overlapping patterns of Sanskrit vibrato and Sumerian cantillation, a dialogue across time and space. They theorized that the pillars formed a planetary resonator, a global instrument designed to sing across dimensions. Each would need to be played to unlock or seal the celestial valve. A sudden quake in the Himalayas registered as a magnitude 6.3 tremor. It emanated from beneath the mountain's core, directly along a tremor line linking the Amazon pillar and the Dakhla site. Seismic imaging showed a cavern opening thousands of meters below the surface, but when explorers aimed sensors at it, they found nothing. The cave was empty, except for a single footprint, an inverted trilobite shape not belonging to any known creature. It hovered just above the dust. Back in Dakhla, the spiral stairwell reactivated. The smooth walls pulsed with a new glyph, a fractal representation of Earth, surrounded by 6 smaller nodules, 6 additional obelisk sites yet undiscovered. In its center, a shape like a sky-born eye, no longer weeping flame but open, unblinking. Drones filming the chamber began to distort. Their feed showed layered versions of the explorers, phasing slightly out of time, and a new signal emerged from the base of the old obelisk. Low, rhythmic, and the tempo of heartbeat slowed to 52 BPM. In Lima, oceanographers reported that whales had deviated from migratory paths. Instead, pods gathered near a region of deep-sea fractures, aligned with the Amazon pillar's subaquatic base. The whales sang unusual harmonic sequences in response to sonar. Experts were stunned. Whales do not respond to sonar. But here they swam in spirals, avoiding the fracture zones. Across the world's financial markets, inexplicable low featureless drops rippled. Bond yields spiked, commodity prices fluttered, and an automated trading algorithm in Tokyo triggered a sell-off for no visible reason. Its only log entry got a pulse. Up in the Oort cloud, telescopes recorded the blinking light accelerating, now in staccato bursts, no longer cosmic whispers but sharp commands. 3 pulses, then 4, then 5, the pattern of prime numbers. An intelligence test, a cosmic handshake. And every handshake requires trust. At the Vatican, 2 seal fragments of the ritual incantation were delivered. One copy torn during transport, the other intact. But the third never came. Without all 3, the ritual is incomplete. The verse of silence remains unfinished. Whoever holds the 3rd seal is unknown, but the world is searching. In the middle of the Pacific, near the vanished cargo ship, a new monolith emerged. Horizontal at first, submerged in 15 meters of water. 10 days later, its top broke surface. Fishermen report it pulses at 480 hertz, the inverse of the Dakhla frequency. Radiocarbon readings on seaweed at its base date back only a year, but the stone is striated with symbols older than Egypt. Back in Dakhla, the opus escalated. The obelisk trembled, the ground fractured, the stairwell's glyph changed again. 7 nodules circled the central eye. 7 breaths completed, 7 stakes driven, but the final stroke, the 8th, was missing. The sky above pulsed with cloud formations unnaturally formed into labyrinthine spirals, veiling the stars. The Bedouin seer rose once more at dawn, her voice cracked but strong. "They opened the gate," she warned. "Not to us, but through us." A sudden gust revealed fragments of golden script etched onto her palms, runes that faded when touched. She looked at the obelisk's base and recited the partial verse of silence. 3 words. The ground stilled. The obelisk's pulse slowed, but the sky began to hum. At that moment, a global blackout occurred. Electronic collapse in 29 countries. Satellites drifted, grids failed, communications collapsed, save for one signal, a deep, resonant tone that traveled through radio static across every remaining frequency. It lasted exactly 27 seconds, low enough to feel in the chest. Then silence. And then, a single flash lit the horizon above all obelisks, not lightning, but resonance made visible. A lattice of light connecting each pillar through the atmosphere, pulsing toward the heavens, a bridge, or a snare. The world held its breath. Silence returned, but not peace. Beneath the desert something waited still,